Once upon a time, an idea was born. It grew into one institution with a master plan. Since 1989, IBTC has evolved to become Stanbic IBTC, setting the pace as one of the first holding companies in Nigeria. Over the years, we've expanded beyond banking to owning formidable business subsidiaries across 10 industries, all backed up with AAA Fitch rating. From becoming Nigeria's first registered pension fund administrator to being dubbed the best investment bank in Nigeria, the leading wealth manager, and the largest brokerage house in the country. With over 4,000 employees, our presence across the country is further strengthened by our efficient network of digital channels. Our dedication to the Nigerian dream has granted us recognition 44 times by 18 awarding bodies in 6 sectors, igniting possibilities for more Nigerians. And across the spheres, we are proud to be champions of exponential trade finance through our partnership with the largest bank in the world, facilitated across 22 sectors. Nigeria is our home, and we are committed to driving her growth. So whatever your dream is, we believe it can be.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this Stanbic IBTC Blue Talks webinar themed Working Towards Net Zero Emissions. This webinar kicks off our 2021 Stanbic IBTC Sustainability Week, a week dedicated to promoting awareness around sustainability initiatives and programs, both within and outside the organization, with the aim of making our world a better place. We are very glad to have you on this session. But before we proceed, please note that the session is being recorded. We will appreciate your participation in the session. You can use the question and answer section to post your questions. Also, we'll appreciate that you complete the post-event survey. The link will be made available during the session. Without much ado, to give us the opening remarks, let us welcome Dr. Olusegun, CE Stanbic IBTC Holdings PLC.
Yes, good afternoon, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I hope you can all hear me loud and clear. Trusting that you are all keeping well and keeping safe. Gives me great pleasure, sincerely, to welcome you to this webinar, which we've themed Working Towards Net Zero Emissions. The year has continued to witness countries and organizations worldwide, commence their recovery from the impact of the novel COVID-19 pandemic. However, extreme climate change events and impacts have increased the difficulty of some of these organizations and countries face in their recovery from COVID-19 related shocks. Climate science shows that in order to halt climate change, anthropogenic carbon emissions have to stop. Reducing them is not sufficient. We all contribute, to these emissions directly and indirectly through our daily activities, lifestyles, and consumer behavior. The United Nations Sustainable Development Goals Report 2020 revealed that climate change is still occurring much faster than anticipated. The year 2019 was the second warmest on record, and that is significant. And it marked the end of the warmest decade, which is 2010 to 2019. Meanwhile, ocean acidification and land degradation have continued to accelerate. Massive numbers of species are still at risk of extinction, and unsustainable consumption and production patterns have remained pervasive. Year 2021 has also witnessed extreme climate change events, including the unusual winter storm in Texas in February, Canada's heat dome in June, devastating floods after torrential rain across Western Europe in mid-July, and the wildfire that ravaged California and still ravaging California. In Nigeria as well, Lagos in particular, we had also witnessed increasing floods after torrential rains. As positioned by the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, 2021 is indeed a make or break year to control the global climate emergency. We cannot continue to ignore our responsibility in the current changes to the climate. In response to the ravaging climate change events, some countries and organizations have thus made commitments to move towards a net zero emissions economy. The Standard Bank Group is not left out, as we have continued and we have also committed to achieving net zero emissions by 2050. Net zero means that emissions are balanced by absorbing an equivalent amount from the atmosphere through small adjustments, leading to a more conscientious and sustainable lifestyle. Each and every one of us can take part in the global climate protection project. As reflected in one of our strategic value drivers, SEE, which is social, environmental, and economic impact. Stanbic IBTC is focused on ensuring it does business responsibly while positively impacting the society and environment where we operate. This Sustainability Week, commencing from today, is therefore an opportunity for us to advance awareness around practical steps we are taking and some more steps we can take in order to make our world a better place. We can curb climate change and safeguard the quality of life of future generations. And to this extent, we believe that every person must be aware of their individual influences on the climate and participate responsibly in its protection, and encourage your active participation in this webinar. We have 3 impressive panelists working in diverse roles, academia, renewable energy, Autogas sectors, and they will be sharing with us practical, pragmatic approaches towards reducing carbon emissions and also achieving net zero. I trust that you will find the discussions and the engagement, very exciting and at the same time instructive as we collectively work towards making our world a better place for all of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Demola. The C, Stanbic IBTC Holdings. Without much ado, can we get our pens and papers to jot down, take notes, and get ready for the webinar session? And before we go into that, I'd like to introduce Vivian Ade Fatona, who will be the moderator for the session. Vivian.
Thank you very much, Shi, and good afternoon, everyone. It's great to have you with us in our Working Towards Net Zero Emissions webinar today. It is with great pleasure that I will be introducing to you our panelists, beginning with Professor Kenneth Amesi. Kenneth Amesi is a leading scholar on sustainable business and finance in the Global South. He is the chair in Business and Sustainable Development and Director of Scaling Business in Africa at the University of Edinburgh. He also holds a chair in Sustainable Finance and Governance at the School of Transnational Governance, European University Institute, Florence, Italy. Kenneth's research interest currently focuses on financial market reforms and governance, as well as on sector-level policies for sustainability and sustainability strategy in organizations. He has an expert-level knowledge of developing and emerging economies. His research has a very strong interface between business and society, particularly national governments in Africa, where he has an extensive network. Since 2015, he has significantly contributed to developing the intellectual foundations of Afro-Capitalism, an economic philosophy for the development of Africa, and championed its mainstreaming in global academia. Besides teaching and researching, Kenneth works closely with businesses and governments in Africa, Europe, and Asia. He leads executive capacity building engagements and consultancy projects in the broad areas of sustainable finance, sustainability strategy, leadership, ethics, and governance for multinational corporations and institutions. He was recently a scholar in residence at the National Pension Commission, Nigeria. Please let's give a digital welcome to Professor Kenneth Amesi. Next on our panel is Mr. Olusegun Olajuwon, the Group Chief Executive Officer of THLD Group. Olusegun Olajuwon is a very energetic, passionate, and articulate businessman. He started out buying and selling trucks, plants, and machinery within and outside the United Kingdom, which culminated in a huge success. And this led him to diversify into logistics with special focus on LPG, CNG trucks. This gave birth to THLD International Logistics Limited, which has now grown to become THLD Group, a household name locally and internationally. He studied accounting and has distinguished himself by winning the award of the Custodian of the Nigerian Dream. As a promoter of clean and green environments, he is championing the series of autogas conversion of vehicles in Nigeria and Africa at large. Let us give a digital welcome to Mr. Olusegun Olajuwon. Lastly, on our panel, we have Ms. Temesoye Jack. Teme Jack is a clean energy solutions expert and the head of sales, banks, gas stations, and SMEs at Starsight Energy. She is instrumental in the cost and carbon emission reduction drive across 550 plus locations in Nigeria and sub-Saharan Africa. She is a pioneer in the renewable energy space, having spent over 10 years in leadership roles and has honed her skills in key areas relevant to the renewable energy sector. A consummate business development leader who has contributed impressively to the renewable energy sector in Nigeria and the global goal of achieving net zero emissions, having contributed to the reduction of up to 31,000 tons of carbon in Nigeria. Being instrumental in achieving the track records I will list out shortly, she is definitely a game changer in the renewable energy space. Expansion into sub-Saharan Africa, success which has been recorded in Kenya and Uganda via the 28 megawatt pipeline, and in Uganda and in Ghana and in Senegal. She has delivered 659,000 liters of diesel displaced on a monthly average, 48 megawatts installed solar generating capacity, 35 megawatts per hour installed battery storage, 17,754 horsepower installed energy efficient cooling capacity. Teme is passionate about helping organizations achieve their goals to reduce greenhouse emissions. Please let us give a digital welcome to Temesoye Jack. Fantastic. Now we'll be moving on to the reason why we are here today. Our panelists have read out their impressive resumes. It is now time for them to answer our questions. And our first question goes to Professor Kenneth. Professor, what is climate change and why should I, as an average Nigerian, bother? As a follow-on to that, what does net zero mean in terms of emissions?
Okay, thank you very much. I'm happy to be here. In relation to the question, I want to say upfront that I'm not a climate scientist. So I'm a layman as it comes to climate change, but I look at climate change from a political economy perspective. So climate change, I mean, climate is different from weather. Weather is what we see on a daily basis, but climate is over a period, I think it's about 25 years or something like that. So climate change in this case also, the way we are interested in it is that the climate has been changing over centuries now. And in our time, if you look at it in terms of pre-industrial level, we've seen a rise in temperature of about 1 degree centigrade. If you look at it that way, it looks as if it's small, but the impact from what scientists say are huge. So in that regard, the world is being asked to be much more conscious in terms of the amount of carbon or greenhouse gases we pump into the atmosphere. And climate change, to a large extent, has been associated to these man-made gases, so to speak, man-made or gases from man-made activities. Although some people have argued that that's not the case. I mean, nature in itself has a way of producing these gases. So which leads to the problems or the challenges about what you may call the anthropomorphic, anthropocentric impact. That's impacts as a result of human activities, as well as impacts as a result of natural, geographical, or geological changes. So that is what the climate change is from a layman's perspective, and not necessarily from the deep scientific view. But I think that layman's understanding can help us through this conversation today. So if you relate that to the net zero agenda, net zero is about, say for example, so the question there is, we should reduce the amount of carbon or greenhouse gases we emit. So net zero means that we should not produce more than we remove, right? So there are two things there. One is we need to reduce the amount of greenhouse gases we produce. The second is that we need to remove, these gases that are already there. So some people use tree planting as a way to, because trees themselves can act as carbon sink. So trees taking carbon dioxide and give us oxygen. Some people are also investing in what they call carbon capture technologies. I was listening to the BBC today. There are new technologies that can suck carbon out of the atmosphere, but then we need to find ways, or we have to store those carbon that is being extracted from the atmosphere. So the net zero there means that there are two sides of it: produce less, but even if you produce, make sure you remove, so that you come to a zero level, so minus plus, kind of net zero. That's what that net zero means. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't produce at all, but make sure what you produce, you're also able to remove it faster than you produce.
Fantastic. Thank you, Prof. And this leads me to the next question. Can you tell us more about the Paris Agreement and the nationally determined contributions for Nigeria?
Okay, the Paris Agreement is more like it's a global agenda, legally binding international treaty on climate change. And as you would imagine, climate change poses a global problem. Global in the sense that it is a common problem. So what happens in the US, if US produces a lot of carbon that will damage the environment, or contribute to global warming, it will affect. There are no boundaries, as you have in national boundaries. We don't have boundaries when it comes to climate change. So it becomes a universal global problem. So no single country can solve it alone, which then means that countries around the world need to come together and agree on how to do it. But there is also the problem of free riding. So if as a country I agree to do it and another country doesn't, what happens? Which is usually the debate between China, the US, India, and some of the other industrialized nations. So the Paris Agreement is one way to bring the countries together to negotiate in what might also be seen as a fair way of addressing the problem. Because the politics of it always suggests that some countries have developed through dirty energy or dirty fuel. Some are emerging at the moment, and they're also contributing their own bit. So to what extent would you ask a China or India or even African countries not to develop the way Europe and North America have developed? So in order to manage that, there was need for the world to come together. That's what the Paris Agreement was all about. But it's to go a step further, it is legally binding. It's a legally binding treaty, was adopted by 196 parties in 2015, but it came into force in 2016. And the goal was to limit the global warming below 2 degrees Celsius, but preferably below 1.5 degrees, because this was based on what scientists have modeled, that if we remain within that limit, we will be fine. But if we exceed it, then we are going into the tipping point and kind of point of no return, and every other thing would follow and crumble as a result of that. So based on that global agreement, different countries then agreed what they would do, their own strategies of reducing their own carbon emission within their own countries, within their own space. So that's what you call the nationally determined contributions. And Nigeria, as part of the party, has agreed to reduce its own based on the circumstances within Nigeria, but also in relation to our economic trajectory, because at the end of the day, it's a fine balance you need to achieve between managing climate change on one hand and managing economic growth on the other hand. So I don't know if that helps to put this in context.
Fantastic. Thank you, Prof. And this leads me to the next question for Ms. Jack. Good afternoon, Ms. Jack. It's great to have you with us. I want you to talk to us about renewable energy and how renewable energy solutions like solar can help us advance Nigeria's nationally determined contributions as we try to minimize the impact of climate change.
Okay, thank you all. Thank you so much, Vivian. Thank you, Prof, for that overview. I just want to also say before I respond that I'm very pleased to be here, part of this journey, and as someone that is very aware of the strides that Stanbic has taken or is taking with respect to achieving net zero. It's quite an honor for me to be here. So I'm very pleased. So to respond to your question, the nationally determined contribution by Nigeria obviously was submitted in 2015. That was the first draft. That was the first submission. It was submitted in 2015, and there was supposed to be a review date in 2020. But of course, because of COVID, that date, I think that would happen now in 2020, this year, 2021, I think November, whereby these countries, like Prof said, will meet, to deliberate on the initial plans submitted. However, Nigeria early this year had submitted a report, sort of like a report ahead of the meeting to sort of say that in the last 5 years, we have gone back. We had looked at data which we didn't previously have, and now that we have more data, I wouldn't say they have all the data, but they have more data, because data is a major issue in Nigeria. So they have more data, and which happens to be substantial data that allows them calculate what the true what will be the true quantum of greenhouse gas emissions in Nigeria, looking at the various sectors. I guess, and I believe, the paths that they have taken, honestly, I feel no matter how slow or it takes them to get to where they need to be, this is the right path. We need to have the data. We need to know how much greenhouse gas emissions are out there, and then you can measure, then you can track, and then you can develop policies and frameworks, to address these issues. So with respect to the nationally determined contribution, they are now calling this revised report, which the comprehensive report will be submitted later in the year, I hope before the November timeline for the countries to meet. They're now calling it the intended nationally determined contributions. With respect to where they have placed solar, which will be under so they have the economy-wide. So according to the report, they have the economy-wide efficiency. Under that, they believe that, you know, they can reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 179 million tons. Then under the efficient gas power stations, they believe that they can reduce by 102 million tons of carbon. And then working towards ending of gas flaring, they believe that by the time they implement their strategies in that area, you know, they'll be able to reduce by 64 million tons. And so they have something on climate, smart agriculture, reduce transmission losses, renewable energy. And, you know, to be fair, apart from the fact that they spent all this time working on getting the right data, you know, there's been other things done, you know, domestically. They've set up the Rural Electrification Agency, you know, working, those are the ones promoting the development of mini grids across Nigeria, especially to unserved areas of grid locations. So it's not like work has stopped. It's just that, you know, with respect to the NDC and the Paris Agreement, you know, these are the things that they have prioritized, you know, and I'm sure every other thing will fall into place. With respect to the use of solar energy to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, so in the Paris Agreement, I don't know how much time I have. In the Paris Agreement, they committed to 25% under business as usual scenarios, meaning that, you know, they don't have to spend so much, you know, they really have to spend little to achieve, you know, what that 20% or 25% that they had committed to. And then but it would then be 45% if they got like foreign funding, support from other countries, funding to to help address these issues. So in business as usual scenarios, right, it would mean that rather than the initial plan that the government had, you know, to satisfy the power requirements in the country, rather than go the infrastructure, rather than it be entirely spent on developing fossil related infrastructure, you know, it would then also be channeled into the development of this mini grids. So it will sort of like be the money we're supposed to have spent, you know, we just sort of spend it on, you know, something good. So that's really it for me.
Thank you very much, Ms. Jack. And I will also come back to the personal point of view in terms of us as individuals and how we can use solar to help reduce our own personal greenhouse gas emissions. Now, to Mr. Olajuwon, it's great to have you here again. I would like to talk about Autogas. How can we use Autogas to cut down our carbon emissions?
Well, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having me here, standing on the very lovely existing protocol established. Autogas, as we all know, is the process whereby vehicles are powered by gas, and either with LPG, CNG, LNG for heavy-duty trucks, which again, we have that in abundance in Nigeria. So the question now is, how is this possible? How do we get Nigerians to use gas as an alternative? We struggled with gas for cooking a few years ago, but as you agree with me today, at least 4, 5 in 10 households are using gas. I grew up knowing that gas is dangerous until I get to know more about gas, as it is even the safest fuel of all. So we have had series of challenges in getting Nigerians to, you know what, you can run on gas, the fare is there. The cost, again, people say is expensive, but we've been able to get people's mind to understand the different type of gases that we have. We have propane butane, which is the mix we use for cooking now. We would rather use pure propane or 95% propane for autogas in terms of LPG, and we use CNG, compressed natural gas, for medium, light, and heavy duty trucks, and we use LNG for heavy duty trucks, which again, all of these we have. So we can introduce the use of gas as an alternative. The government has done quite a few of these. December last year, we converted about 95% of the vehicles unveiled by Mr. President in Abuja. in the introduction of the National Gas Expansion Plan. And before then, we've done quite a lot of work in promoting, educating Nigerians, motorists, the automotive industry, the gas producing companies. We've thought on the importance of how to make gas available. Again, we have this gas. Infrastructure is another big issue, and the pipelines are not as wide as we ought or we thought they could be. Up north, we're struggling with gas up north. Thank God for Greenville. They're taking LNG, which will be regasified, which again will get back to CNG. So that has also reduced the possible problems that we could be experienced in terms of gas availability. Then we have this bigger issue on propane usage. You know, we've got quite a lot of guys with propane, but they'll rather use it for blending. So there is more of a market sensitization, letting Nigerians know this is possible. Again, the cooking gas is different from the auto gas that we intend to use. Yes, we can use, most of our equipment can use the butane propane mix. So we have quite a lot of work to do. It's possible, it can be achieved. We've seen the likes of Turkey running on gas, the likes of North Korea, Brazil, South American countries like Argentina, even here in Europe, in England, we have had a series of big projects of where heavy duty trucks are being powered by LNG or LCNG when LNG is being regasified, or CNG. So Nigerians is a lot of groundwork educating people to understand the benefit. So yes, it is possible. We are working a lot of it. A lot of questions being asked, a lot of fear as well. But it's our responsibility to clarify and to let people know this gas is even safer than even diesel and petrol that we have. So those are one of the issues we have. And we also have issues with the guys that sell petrol and diesel. Because if you start selling gas, we'll stop selling petrol and diesel. But again, I said, guys, no, that's not don't think that way. You will still be the one selling the gas. So if the numbers on gas or petrol reduces, that shows the gas is increasing. So once there are vehicles running on petrol and diesel, I can guarantee you will have guys switching to gas. So I'll leave it there for further questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Olajuwon. We'll definitely come back to talk more on Autogas. So for the next set of questions, the panelists will be averaging about 3 to 4 minutes response time so that we can keep to time. Prof, with respect to climate change impact, what do you think Nigeria can expect over the next 3 to 5 years? What are the challenges and opportunities ahead of us?
Yeah, so that's a very big question. And if I had the answer, right, I'll become a millionaire overnight, but I will try. My brother has mentioned something about gas. I think we'll come back to that because gas in itself is not the end point. Gas is more like an intermediary strategy for countries like Nigeria, although you still see gas in other industrialized countries. But gas in itself is, it's going back to renewable and so on and so on. I think the pressure, one thing I would say is that the pressure will be there on Nigeria and other countries to move away from gas, although we say gas is an intermediary strategy, but it's not the end of it. So let me answer that question quickly by saying I will look at it in 3 ways. The first one is politics. If you look at what is happening in Nigeria today, the herdsmen and the farmers crisis, you might point that to the problem of climate change because of desertification or other things happening in the northern part of Nigeria, and not even in Nigeria, beyond Nigeria, Chad, Niger, and so on and so forth, and how climate change is shaping the terrain of that region, so that the herdsmen are now being forced to come down south, and in the process, they encounter farmers' challenges. So other people may not want to frame it as a climate change problem. They would rather see it as a religious problem, which in itself makes it more convoluted. So within that, then you have politics entangled in it because of these sort of problems of marginalization or people talking about cessation and so on and so forth. So if you lump all those things together, you can begin to see the possible political challenges that would emerge in the next 3 to 5 years for Nigeria if nothing is change in that direction. Another theme, if you want to look at, will be economics. Right? So within the economics part of it, I will be looking at things like markets. So markets are now, especially financial markets, the Nigerian Stock Exchange, I think they changed their name now, but institutional investors are beginning to pay attention to what companies are doing, to what different actors in the space are doing. So the flow of finance might likely reflect that climate change agenda. And the other thing, which also in that space, is that sustainability at the global level, especially from the global north, has been framed from a climate change perspective. So if you're looking for money from the global north, then be prepared to respond to that pressure. The other point which Teme mentioned about, I hope I pronounced the name well, is data. And that's, I will put in the context of analytics. She said Nigeria had made progress with data. I would like to see that data. And I'm very skeptical because at the moment I'm leading a project on developing a data framework for the ND. And we know that data is a problem, not only in Nigeria, but in many African countries. So it would be nice to see in the next 3 to 5 years how that terrain will change. So I see possible opportunities in data analytics. I see opportunities and problems in the economics. I also see problems in the politics if it's not addressed.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Prof. Moving on to Ms. Jack. According to the International Energy Agency, wind and solar plants became 70% and 89% cheaper, respectively, in the last 10 years. And the expectation is that their capacity will exceed coal and gas in less than 5 years. Tell us, what do you think the outlook is for solar energy solutions in Nigeria? Are there countries we can draw examples from in terms of solar implementation and utilization of solar within our country?
So yes, Prof, I myself am, just to speak to what Prof, I'm, waiting with bated breath to see the data, but to just read it, verbatim, it says we have now. Sorry, 1 second. Sorry. Okay, in developing Nigeria's updated NDC, substantially larger volume of information is available. That's what is in the letter. So that's where I got that from. I myself am waiting. Okay, to answer your question, Vivian. Yes, we could have seen the drop in solar, the variable renewable energy prices, which would mean solar and wind. But Sub-Saharan Africa is yet to see, that really we're yet to see get the benefit of that in Sub-Saharan Africa. Majorly because, like Prof said, you have the political, you have the economic, you have the sociological, the technology. There are just so many, barriers right now that we're not able to get the benefit of the devaluation of the naira, the scarcity of foreign exchange, because we're not producing, we're not manufacturing here, we're not manufacturing solar panels, so we're reliant on supply chains, bringing in the solar system or the wind mill, as it were, whatever it is that we require to deploy a full solution. I would just take from our experience as a solar solutions provider. This is Southside Energy now. Every movement in foreign exchange has a major impact on our business, right? So even if you're getting reduced prices based on volume purchase or bulk purchase, that is being eroded by the volatility in the foreign exchange. So, and what you don't really want is to sort of transfer all that. Every time that happens, you sort of transfer it to the customer, which is ideally what it should be. And that's why we've got a rise and fall mechanism in our contracts. But an ideal situation would be that, we had the infrastructure in country, to produce, to manufacture, or to put together these panels, right, or assemble these panels in country, and there's local content. We're able to source a lot of the materials that we require to deploy the solution in country locally. But with respect to, the capacity that Nigeria have, the solar solution, I feel like is one source of energy that we're yet to even scratch the surface with in Nigeria. And if these barriers can be addressed, like Prof had mentioned, we would make significant strides in the sector.
Thank you, Ms. Jack. And to Mr. Olajuwon, following on from Prof's comment on Autogas, are there countries that have implemented the use of Autogas successfully? And if yes, what can we draw from those countries? What's the outlook for the use of Autogas in Nigeria?
Can you hear me now?
Loud and clear.
Yeah, we do have, well, Autogas been around for over 40 years. Technology has been developing. The newer the car, the newer the technology. So we have Turkey being the largest user of LPG powered vehicles in Europe, North Korea, South Korea as well. So yes, we've had success in so many countries, not to say it's going to be like a new thing to the manufacturers. It's new to the market in Nigeria. It's not new, even in Ghana, they've been using it for a few years. We got to Ghana, people knew about this already. It's just a standard. So yeah, we can adopt it, but trust me, the Nigerian market is one of the toughest one to break in terms of Autogas usage, but we're getting there. There's comfort in petrol already because of the subsidy. So again, that makes it difficult, but we've been able to achieve quite a lot in terms of savings. There's quite a lot of fleet owners, the big guys, are running on gas. So we can adopt it perfectly. The government are working towards achieving that. We are part of the big players that are promoting the use of gas, and there's going to be quite a few great news soon with regards to conversion of vehicles to run on gas, fleet owners. So yes, it's something that we can do. It's going to require a lot expertise, not just people going into the business to say they want to convert. There are over 10,000 component manufacturers in the world, and there's just about a few of them that are very good, whereby you will not expose those conversions to dangerous explosion and all of that, which has always been the fear. But we've got quite a lot of safety measures on vehicle conversion. The technology are quite advanced. So yeah, either for medium, light, or heavy duty vehicles, we can achieve a perfect conversion, either via the OEM or DOEM installation. We have a job with Innocent Motors we're doing. There's 100 buses that are going on DOEM QVM modification, whereby these vehicles will be running on 40% CNG and 60% diesel. So that's a huge saving. So yes, there's a lot that can be achieved, and there's a lot of educating the industry that we have to do, and there's quite a lot going on, which I believe it should be known to Nigerians soon than later in terms of the switch to gas. So we can achieve it. We have the expertise, we have the gas. The likes of Kazakhstan, they don't have gas such, but they were able to introduce gas perfectly. Turkey, for instance, 10 out of 15 taxis in Turkey are gas powered. You wouldn't even know they're gas powered. And they're lovely vehicles, brand new ones. So we've been able to achieve modification for the likes of Toyota in Turkey, whereby we retrofit these futures and it runs on perfectly on either LPG or petrol. And for the diesel part of it, we need to inject diesel and gas to the engine at the same time simultaneously. So yeah, it is doable. It's just people need to understand it, and it's not free. It comes at a cost because most people think they want it for free, but again, these are things that has to be paid for. But yeah, there are a lot of incentives that government has introduced. So we hope the Nigerian government will do the same and we get gas going since we have it in abundance. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Olajuwon. Prof, I know you said you're not a climate scientist, but I have another question for you in that line. Can clean energy really replace fossil fuels the way we're going? And can we really supply 100% of our energy needs without fossil fuels? We're used to the fuels that we're used to. And obviously this is a change process, but is this possible, 100% possible?
I think the straight answer is yes, but the big problem is the but, right? So yes, I mean, we can do that, I mean, definitely, but there are problems. Olajuwon was talking about countries that are using gas and doing fanciful things. Those are great. He also talked about the cost, right? So if we don't get the price right, people will always make a choice. When it comes to green issues, I mean, a lot of studies have shown it. People are willing to go green, but when it affects their pockets, they make a quick choice. They know where to go to. So again, it has to be cost efficient, affordable. We also need the infrastructure. Think about gas in homes. People are willing to, can switch, but it needs to be convenient for them. It shouldn't be hard. So if it's hard, again, it's all about behavior change. I mean, Vivian, I think you know this very well. When you make things difficult for people, they don't change. So how do we make it convenient for them? How do we also ensure that the quality of experience remains the same or even better? Because people don't want to downgrade because they want to go into gas or whatever. If you think about electric cars, that's one of the things that are affecting electric cars at the moment. But people want electric cars to perform. The minimum they expect is for it to be as good as whatever we have now. If it's better, then that will be fine. So the other thing also is the technology. So Nigeria at the moment, we are stuck with a particular technology which is to a large extent built around fossil fuel. We also, in terms of skill and manpower, is still around that. How many universities are offering degree programs in renewable energy? How many are developing skills and competencies? So you can't use an old skill to address a new problem. So these are some of the systemic things that we need to change. And finally, is to think about, again, putting a price to fossil fuel, the carbon that comes from it is part of the challenge. If many countries now are beginning to think about carbon markets as ways to solve the problem, but we need to price carbon very well in such a way that there is a disincentive to continue with fossils. So that way we can also encourage people to move to the cleaner technologies we are talking about. But again, gas is better than fossil fuel, but gas is not the solution.
Thank you very much, Prof. And I think now we want to talk challenges in terms of solar, in terms of Autogas. That's to Ms. Jack and also to Mr. Olajuwon. What are the challenges that you see in terms of individuals adopting both solar and also Autogas, and how do you think these can be addressed? We will start with Mr. Olajuwon, then we'll take Ms. Jack.
Okay. Well, there's quite a few challenges on both sides. The motorist, for a conversion to be done successfully, there must be a sacrifice of a space in the boot. So there's the need for another storage tank in a vehicle, which most customers will say, I need my space, most especially in Nigeria. The Chisco conversion we did and the Effects conversion we did, they were complaining about the space. But I said, guys, you complain about the space for one bag for a 3,000 naira customer for transportation compared to saving 14,000 naira per trip. So make a decision. The other challenges is that infrastructure for CNG is very expensive. There are 2 CNG stations we are bringing north to Nigeria later this year. It's going to cost us close to 700,000 USD. So again, infrastructure is another big issue. The other problem is the custom duty, which I think the government is attending to waive on importation, because don't forget, at the end of the day, those costs will affect the end cost, which again, the customer we have to suffer for. So there's quite a lot of challenges. The technology is not a problem, it's a successful one already. So again, the challenge is to convince Nigerians. I've seen quite a lot. I've seen fleet owners with over 300 trucks, and I gave them the numbers to run on gas. The savings is obvious. The savings is in millions, 100 of it, but they don't want to go to gas because of the fear. So I need to come down to a better explanation just to find the savings. So we also have challenges in convincing these fleet owners. who claim I don't, in his word, I say I don't get a problem with diesel. So imagine, imagine someone saying that you lost all the hope out there. But yeah, those are the challenges, but we will get there, you know, and we're hoping for a better future with the introduction of gas as an alternative. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Jack, in terms of solar, what are we looking at as challenges and how do you think these can be addressed?
I think between Prof and Mr. Olajuwon, they've covered it. They sort of did a pestle analysis right there between both of them. So because I think Prof covered the political, he covered the economical, he covered the technological, and so, you know, and I think Mr. Olajuwon has also covered some aspect of it. So I will say, so I will just move away from the academic and the scientific and then just speak to just the environment and just us as human beings, you know, our consciousness and, you know, just the fact that, yes, Nigeria, all the agencies, there are 3 or 4 agencies that have been set up, you know, to work on the, this project for the country. But I'm thinking at this point, if the intention is not to spend a lot, right, but still get more done, and with the spotlight on the private sector right now, I know that Stanbic is doing, and I know a lot of other banks that are, you know, doing as much as they can, but I feel like much more can be done with respect to awareness, with respect to a more robust campaign towards net zero. You'll be surprised that a lot of people, even within your organizations, it's good that we're having the Sustainability Week because it's a way of also educating your staff, employees, you know. You'll be surprised that a lot of them, it ends at the workplace. I mean, you get to your homes and you're no longer conscious of energy efficiency. And energy efficiency, according to IEA, mentions that 40% abatement of greenhouse gas emissions will be attributable to energy efficiency. So, I mean, the barest minimum anyone can do is to, you say you're conscious of the lights, you know, we could have stricter building standards, you know, government could ensure that, you know, it might not be a total smart building, but there are certain standards that, you know, must be adhered to, you know, to leakages, making the building airtight, which is the practice all over the world. You know, the buildings must be airtight, right? Especially for buildings that are going to be using air conditioning, right? We must be airtight, you know, the trussing of the roof, which is a lot of issues we find when we go to site, that these buildings, maybe there was a substandard job done, right? So the roof itself cannot carry the weight of solar panels, if you get what I mean. So then additional work, additional investment needs to be done in that area. So I think that awareness, if we could all focus just individually on how we reduce, how we're more efficient with energy usage. In our house, we turn off the lights, organizations invest in motion sensor, temperature sensors, metering, you know, things that would help you track and measure, have a balanced scorecard of saying what did we do this year? You know, next year, how do we measure what we did this year and compare it to what we intend to do next year? So I feel like that will go a long way in reducing energy consumption, reducing the pressure on the national grid, and then it would also sort of allow things like solar, you know, be more optimized. So because by the time you reduce your load by say 20% or 30%, we're able to better utilize your roof space to put enough solar panels to power your entire building within the period that solar is available. In Nigeria, it's 6 to 7 hours of solar availability because of where we're situated on the belt.
Thank you very much, Ms. Jack. And I think you also picked at one of my next questions, which is, I mean, we can't control the weather. How reliable is solar energy really? And what happens if the sun isn't shining? What do we do in instances like that?
Right. Okay. So yes, 6.5 to 7 hours of sunshine is what you have, right? But obviously there are technologies that allow, and just look at it, 6.5 to 7 hours, ideally, because your national grid is not reliable, right? And then as a business, you as a corporate organization, you need that reliability, you need that uptime, right? And so if you had a guarantee of 6 to 7 hours of power, right, I mean, to know that instead of spending double the amount, depending on type of solution, on diesel, you could be making that savings on by using solar. And the technologies, so there's the battery storage solution, which is for storage, which is the way we do it. We size the building, we size our system such that there's enough in there, redundancy in there to take care of, to charge the batteries, to provide solar in the building during the sunlight hours. What we do is we go into your building, we reduce your energy, retrofit the building such that we're able to deploy, you utilize your roof to deploy our solar solution to power the entire building, depending on the type of building that it is. Obviously, the roof space determines how much we can provide. But then, if you do want the hybrid solution whereby there's storage, then there will be a storage system. Some organizations are only interested in, looking at that 30% of the day, right? If they can make the savings on that 6 to 7 hours, it's huge for the organization. And then you're reducing greenhouse gas emissions because you're no longer relying on diesel, for power, but you're, now getting your power straight from the solar PV solution.
Thank you, Ms. Jack. My next question goes to Prof. And you know what? I'm going to start picking from the questions that our attendees have posted. We can see some of them already. And this one is from Olakeo Abdusalam. He's asking, I believe one of the factors slowing down the actualization of sustainable climate in Nigeria, Africa, is the climate education gap. How can we address the climate education gap in Nigeria?
I think that's pretty simple, isn't it? Just speak to NUC, see if NUC will be interested in incorporating that into their curriculum. But beyond that also, I think individual faculty members or academics can bring the conversation into whatever they teach, whether you're teaching arts or you're teaching mathematics or history. There's always a place for reflection, and we can bring in climate change issues and sustainability issues, broadly speaking. But just a quick note in relation to what Olajuwon and Teme have said in relation to the challenges in Nigeria. One of the things we haven't mentioned here is the interest involved. So think about those who import fuel, oil and gas, and would they be there waiting for us with their arms folded to then wait for us to talk about this switch? Wouldn't they fight? Think about what is happening in the power sector. And so people have argued, whether you call it conspiracy theory or whatever, that those who sell generators are not keen for us to get our electricity up and running. And some Nigerians are investing heavily in the refinery business. Do you think they would just think oil fossil fuel will fade away in the next 2-3 years and they won't recoup their investment? So these are probably some of the things we need to think about in the Nigerian context.
Thank you very much, Prof. And this next question, I think I'm just going to throw it open to anyone on the panel who's willing to answer. How can a company in the downstream energy sector achieve net zero? It appears conflicting, or would this require an entire change in strategy? Who wants to go for that?
I'll go. Yes, Prof, I'm so glad you're the one that brought up that point. As someone active in the industry, it's so refreshing to hear it from an academic, so it's fantastic.
Say it, right?
Okay, so right on to downstream. That's a group that I also manage on, with respect to sales, and we've had to come up with, so the kind of solutions that we have for the standalone building or industrial or large commercial or large residential is quite different, and we needed to sort of put in a lot of work to come up with the ideal solution for the downstream. Yes, because we realize that in terms of calculating what the actual, obviously because they're cost driven, so it depends on whether, you're like a Shell or you're like a Total, that, is interested in, just the net zero aspect, and you're not thinking of cost, you're just thinking of, how do you offset, carbon already released, how do you hit your SDG or ESG metrics, as it were. So you're not really thinking of the cost, but in a situation whereby it's cost driven and you really want the cost saving that comes with deploying renewable energy, which is what everybody thinks. Everybody thinks that because it's solar and it lasts for a very long period of time, it should be cheaper. At least the sun is free. So that's what everybody thinks, but that's a myth. It all comes at a cost. Yes, we're harnessing this energy, but there's a technology behind it, and it comes at a cost. So with respect to gas stations, we do have solutions for gas stations. I don't think I'm going to go into, because we paid a lot of school fees, to get, but yes, gas stations can achieve, and most of the time, if it is not cost driven, is to still achieve this net zero that we're talking about, especially for multinationals that have their stations in other countries. So it's sort of a way of offsetting the emissions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Jack, for answering. I think the next question will be to Mr. Olajuwon. Do you see the emergence of electric cars as a challenge to autogas cars?
Well, not really, because gas-powered vehicles is like a transition to electric. That's what we believe. You will need a lot of electric cars on the road to be able to justify the importance or the marching to the statement being challenged to gas-powered vehicles. In Turkey, we have at least gas is the third alternative fuel in the world after petrol and diesel. So electric vehicles, you need quite a lot of them, and there's a whole lot going on. For instance, here in England, we've started seeing quite a lot of charging points here and there. And then the cost of buying them, you will need a new car that is electric. But what we are saying is your existing petrol and diesel car to be retrofitted. So you're still sustaining and maintaining the same vehicle to achieve a dual fuel system. In the future, maybe, we don't know. But what we have planned for Autogas and what has been happening for the past few years, we've seen markets grown to level whereby almost even the 2021 vehicles have been perfectly incorporated with an alternative component that can allow you to run on dual fuel system. So as gas as a transitional fuel to electric, we will need that. It's very important at the present. So for the future, I cannot speak for the future, but I know there's a whole lot that needs to be done. Even here in Europe, developed countries, they're still struggling with electric vehicles, the costs and all of that. So yeah, we're not disputing the fact that it's possible, it's going to happen, but we are talking about the present now. And the only way to get to electric is to go through gas, which is a transitional fuel, is a cheaper, cleaner, less fossil, like we all said. So it's a whole lot of work, but yeah, it's not like a direct challenge to gas-powered vehicles in terms of electric. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Olajuwon. I will take this other question. It's directed to Teme. So it says, my question goes to Teme, the clean energy expert. The primary culprit of global warming is the use of fossil fuel. And unfortunately, human development is hinged on the use of fossil, particularly for countries that are still developing like Nigeria. Though this is a global issue, as a Nigerian, do you think it is majorly up to individuals and corporations to achieve the reduction of fossil fuel, for instance? Majority of cars in Nigeria still run on fossil fuel, and also keeping in mind that majority of Nigerians live below the poverty level. That's one. That is, do you think it's the responsibility of individuals and corporations? The second question is targeted towards the government. Do you think that the government has a major role to play in addressing this issue in Nigeria? And do you have any suggestions for the government, individuals, corporations to actually take us further on this journey of climate change?
Okay, I would like to refer to the World Economic Forum, Davos 2020. I think it was 2020 or 2021, I'm not sure, but it was on the stakeholder capitalism metrics, right? So, because of financialization, whereby non-financial organizations are now becoming more financialized because, like Prof had mentioned, the stock market is now, sort of controls the global economy, right? So it was realized that so it's more about shareholder value. Do you understand? So a lot of stakeholders, because there's the spotlight on shareholder values, a lot of stakeholders are not involved in this process. So Klaus Schwab, came up with the stakeholder capitalism metrics, which involves all the stakeholders, which will be government, which will be corporations, which will be the community, which will be the employees, the staff, everyone should be involved in a process whereby these metrics can be around planet, people, and profit, or progress, people, and profit. Progress, people, and planet, sorry. So I think that currently 100+ organizations are experimenting, are sort of adopting this stakeholder capitalism metrics to sort of see, how they can, how there can be value along that chain, right, for everyone. So they might not be able to hit all the SDG goals, right? But they can prioritize it based on this input from the different stakeholders. So I believe that if government right now and organizations as well, will imbibe this sort of test run, just run with it and just test run it and see that, if I follow this guidelines that the World Economic Forum has, is trying to ensure that other blue chip organizations, adopt, am I going to be able to achieve or meet my, SDG goals, as it were? I think that if the government, corporations come together and they consider every stakeholder involved, from employees to shareholders, I think we'll make much progress in it.
Thank you very much, Ms. Jack. I want to find out, Prof. Mr. Olajuwon, do you have something to include on that question before we move on to other questions?
No, I'm good.
Right, fantastic. Okay, so this question is to Prof. In your opinion, how has remote working arrangements affected the environment during the pandemic? And what are your thoughts on this as economies of the world are opening again?
We've said a lot in terms of carbon footprint, so we've had less of that. But it's all about the arrangement and displacement of work and resources. Some also argue that technology firms, so when we are here, we might think we are reducing our carbon footprint, but I learned it takes a lot to save things on the cloud, the internet we are using, and so on and so forth. Even people at home powering, using generators to support themselves. Unfortunately, I don't think companies are taking those into consideration, because you expect people to work from home, but what sort of energy or power do they need to do that? So as we come back, yes, things might open up a bit, and then the impact might increase. But I think what the pandemic has taught us that is the fact that we can do hybrid, we can hybridize in a way. So I don't think people will be traveling as much. There are certain things that can still be done through online as we are now, but it's also always good to also meet face, in person. And I think also technology will develop. I'm very optimistic. Humanity has always been challenged, but humanity has always found ways to overcome these challenges. So in that case, I'm optimistic that technology can help us, and people are not sleeping. People are working very hard to find technological solutions to some of these problems. So as much as people, climate change might necessitate the kind of doom and gloom, I tend to see the bright side of it irrespective. But before I leave that point, the question about whether Africa should be dragged into this whole thing, or even Nigeria in particular, we're living below poverty line and so on and so forth, is a good question to ask. And I'm also sympathetic to it, because like I said earlier, the whole sustainability agenda, if you look at the EU sustainability taxonomy, it's all about the environment and climate change. And I said, hold on, please. I mean, yes, it might be a problem in the global north because it has satisfied and solved some other problems. But when it comes to Africa, to Nigeria in particular, you still have problems, social problems. So where do social problems come into these sustainability transitions we are talking about? So in that, I mean, I learned the European Union at the moment is now thinking about sustainable social sustainability taxonomy, because the global south is beginning to complain that the whole agenda has been hijacked by climate change. So we need to be careful in that regard when it comes to Nigeria to ensure that the other goals, there are 17 goals, it's not just about climate action or some other one, that the 17 goals are properly reflected and none is marginalized, because that becomes a problem for our overall sustainable development. I thought to draw attention to that fact, otherwise climate change has the propensity to overshadow others because it's also driven by the global north and investors that have the money. So we need to be careful about that.
Thank you, Prof, for highlighting that. Thank you very much. Okay, so the next question I will ask is on the safety of autogas, and this goes to Mr. Olajuwon. When you started speaking, you actually spoke about the worries that the average Nigerian has about gas. How safe is autogas for use in vehicles? And also, if I currently have a car that runs on fossil fuels, can I combine both? I know you said something about retrofitting, so I'd like you to give more details to those who are listening to us right now.
Yeah, thank you very much. Gas-powered vehicles just as safe as other fuel-powered petrol, diesel, even safer. So one of the things is the tank which we use either for LPG or CNG is a thicker one with a minimum of 12 mm. So it's safer. We have quite a lot of sensors by the engine, by the tank, whereby even the little leakage of gas will short supply of gas. So that the safety part of it is not even something we take for granted. So it's just as safe as every other fuel, and even safer than petrol and diesel. I can confirm that to you because of the storage capacity and the technology that comes in it. And having a petrol or diesel car can easily be converted, retrofitted either way, whereby for petrol engine, we'll convert it to run on dual fuel. So you can either switch manually or it does switch itself automatically to either petrol or gas, whichever fuel finishes first. And for us, our conversions we've done in Nigeria, Ghana, Zimbabwe, Rwanda, we do a default setting for gas. So once you switch on your car, it goes on gas. And if the gas finishes, it switches to petrol. And we've been doing that. For diesel engine is a different ball game. Diesel engine, we substitute supply of diesel to the engine, to the engine by a certain percentage of gas. So there will still be the need for diesel engine, diesel at the same time injecting a certain amount of gas, either LPG, LNG or CNG into the engine. So we've seen the likes of Power Gas, the likes of the fleet from Dangote, we've seen BHN, all of these guys are powered by CNG. We've seen large Lafarge Cement. They've also just injected about 50 LNG, CNG trucks into the system. So those conversions are possible, ain't gonna happen either way. There must be a retrofitting, additional components added to the engine. There's nothing that is gonna affect the engine, rather makes it work better. So yeah, those features are available. There's quite a few cars in Nigeria that will not be convertible because they are too old, mostly carburetor engines. You know, there's no point converting them. The cheapest conversion that we have is about 250,000 naira. Then the question is, do I need to convert my car? do I need to? If you use your car once a week, you don't need to. So the target are mostly Uber drivers, taxi drivers, transport companies, and all of that. So all those conversions are possible. We've engaged all the big players. Most of them are signed up to convert their fleets to run on gas. And the same apply to generators as well. So the same savings that we anticipate or we projected on diesel engines, we apply to generators. So imagine your generator savings by 40–30%. That's a huge amount. A truck going to Kaduna back is going to be saving you about 78,000 naira. So all of those savings are possible. All of those savings are visible. The conversion is there. The technology is there. The expertise are there. So we believe people just need to start making that decision to switch, and it's just as safe as every other fuel-powered engine in the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Olajuwon. And unfortunately, we will not be able to take any more questions. What I would like to ask now is for our panelists to ready their closing remarks. I will call on you one after the other to give those. I mean, working here in Stanbic IBTC, I'm a sustainability champion. I also know that we started a paper-like journey a long time ago. We do initiatives like switch off and unplug, meaning that it's everyone's responsibility to drive sustainability. And as a result of that, I want your closing remarks to be targeted towards what can I do as an individual? What can I do as an organization? And how do I even, yes, the government, but how do I get my lawmakers to respond positively towards sustainability? I will start with Ms. Jack.
Okay, I think I would like to use the opportunity to sort of expatiate on the information campaigns. And it cannot be underestimated or overemphasized that it is important, it is crucial at this point. Like I'm not sure it was Prof or Mr. Olajuwon that had mentioned it, the desertification. And once you have desertification, you have a refugee crisis. You know, Nigeria it has a population of almost 200 million people. If there were to be, you know, an issue, I mean, an extreme weather condition, right, which could potentially lead to people leaving their where they currently live and trying to find shelter somewhere else, you know, and could potentially lead to a refugee. I mean, which nation in sub-Saharan Africa can take, you know, can deal? I mean, nobody will be able to deal because you're the largest, you have the largest population, right? So whilst we're focused, and just to touch on what Prof had said with the SDG goals, and that's why when I was going to answer that question, I went straight to SDG goals, you know, and, you know, the stakeholder capitalism metrics on SDG goals, because it's not just about climate change. You have number one being to end world hunger. You have, you know, energy efficiency as SDG 7. You have, you know, something else as SDG 8, which I feel Nigeria is focused on. So Nigeria's plan has to be holistic, that is taking care of, obviously, if you can't afford clean energy with respect to renewables, government has to be seen to be, you know, subsidizing or ensuring that you have maybe off-grid, you know, power, home solar systems, right? And for the rural areas, you know, investing in these mini grids, you know, to supply unserved areas. Education, you know, education. You can imagine if schools were powered with with solar, for instance, you know, the interest would, you know, it's automatic. You know, people would just be automatically interested in the whole concept of a solar solution or having a solution. And then I think one thing that I should have mentioned was the maintenance culture, right? The reason why a lot of people probably don't believe in it or don't even believe that it works is because they see it maybe they see it on the street, you know, people they build and then they deploy and they leave it and no one is maintaining the systems, right? So it's not working to its optimal efficiency, and it looks as though it has been abandoned because there's no one taking care of it. But if we had the maintenance culture, information campaign, education, maintenance culture, policies and regulations, waivers, extended pioneer status for countries or companies willing to invest in the sector, just creating in fact, I know this one, most individuals will probably want to take my neck for this, but the PHCN tariff needs to reflect the actual cost. If it doesn't, investors will not come into this country to invest in your power sector, and then your discos will continue to sell to other countries when there is a huge need for that same power in this country. So those subsidies need to be removed at some point. I know that people are being political right now because of, obviously, there's the campaign coming up and all whatnot, but those are the realities. If we do not do these things, investors will not come into this country, and then the sector would not develop. Thank you so much. I'm so happy that I was part of this program.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ms. Jack. Mr. Olajuwon, your closing remarks in that line?
Thank you very much. It's going to be short and brief. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Yeah. Well, Autogas has come to stay. The president has launched it last year. The NGP guys are working wonderfully well to ensure the implementation. The regulation definitely is coming, not if, it's going to be when. So there will be so many things going on. The Dangote refinery is coming. So gas, we are having that in more abundance. So we will go to gas at one point. We need all players. We need the financial institutions also to believe in gas as an alternative. You see, we also need the players. The gas companies need to also consider local says. We have been talking to the automotive industry. There's a need for knowledge transfer. We had a very good session last year where we trained about 200 guys on introduction to Autogas. So there's quite a lot that needs to be done, but we need all players to really come together to achieve these. So we're seeking for everyone to come together, seeking for that support and the understanding. The expertise are there. So we are hoping in the coming years is been declared decade of gas. So between now and 2030, I can say for you for sure, our company THLD, we really have a very big mark to make in justifying decade of gas. So yeah, we're looking forward to it, and we ask for everyone to come together to achieve this together. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Olajuwon. Prof, your closing remarks.
Okay, I think what I will add is that sustainability is a journey. So whether we are looking at gas today or solar, let's see it as a journey, because the more the technology improves, the more we're able to see other opportunities. And what we consider sustainable today might not be sustainable tomorrow. So, and that's where sustainability becomes a mindset. As long as we are thinking about the impacts we are creating, whether they both positive and negative impact. And one way I like to summarize sustainability is that it is also an deliberate action to reduce our negative impact and enhance our positive impact. If we keep it that simple, then it doesn't matter whether it is solar today or gas or something else tomorrow. So at each point in time, we are looking at the benefits. We are looking at the harms. We are looking at the opportunities as well. So I give you just a quick example. Biofuel, that is fuel from agriculture, is today seen as a good thing, a renewable energy, sustainable energy. But once it starts to crowd out food production, would it still be sustainable? Would it still be good for the world? So one thing that looks sustainable today might not be sustainable tomorrow. So if the mindset is there, we'll continue to adapt, change, and follow the trend. So this will happen at the individual level, at the corporate level, as well as the country level. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Prof. Ms. Jack, Mr. Olajuwon. It has been a very interesting panel session, and I do believe that all our attendees have taken something very important in terms of sustainability with them. I would like to ask us to all give a virtual round of applause to all our panelists. Very interesting answers and very interesting insights. Now, I would like to call on the head of sustainability for Stanbic IBTC Holdings PLC, Mrs. Omolola Fashesin. Lola, it's good to have you with us this afternoon.
Good to be here. Good afternoon, Vivian. Good afternoon, everyone. So thank you very much for attending this session. I think we can all agree that this has been an insightful session. Thanks to all our esteemed panelists and capable moderators for taking time out of your busy schedules and for sharing from your wealth of experience. We are grateful to Prof for your analysis of climate change and environmental sustainability. I would like to express our gratitude to Mrs. Temitoye Jack for giving an excellent coverage on the use of renewable energy. And to Mr. Olusegun Olajuwon, it's been quite insightful learning about the use of Autogas. Thank you for letting us know that Autogas is safe to use after all, and that we can actually convert our current cars and generators to run on gas. We are all inspired by your great work, and we are leaving this session with a deeper understanding of the impact carbon emissions have on the environment and how we can seek to mitigate it. Thank you very much once again. Now, to take us further in this session, I'll call on Kunle Adedeji, who is the ED, Executive Director of Finance and Value Management, Stanbic IBTC Holdings. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Omolola. Thank you all for participating in the webinar. Once again, our thanks to our distinguished panelists, Prof, Madam Jack, and Mr. Olajuwon. Indeed, this webinar was helpful in setting the tone for our Sustainability Week, which starts this week. Your active participation and insightful questions have contributed to the success of this event. I believe we all leave this webinar with enhanced knowledge on the effect of carbon emissions and how we can collectively work towards reducing our carbon footprint and achieving net zero emissions. As we have noted from the session, by working towards net zero, we will be contributing our quota to the betterment of our communities, which is what we also focus on if you look at our C component of our focus area and our world both today and the future. In the journey towards a sustainable future, everyone's contribution is necessary. So we encourage all of us to imbibe the learning from this session in our everyday lives and in whatever capacity we can. As Stanbic IBTC, we are committed to facilitating a better and more sustainable future for all. This is why, as part of our sustainability strategy, we've developed programs focused on managing our environmental and social footprints. We have already commenced various work streams that will enable us to achieve narrow zero emission. Some of this includes understanding our energy sources, consumption patterns, and possible area for efficiency. We're also adopting cleaner energy sources in our office locations, leveraging Autogas and solar energy solutions. We're also adopting tree planting programs, which we believe will help with carbon sequestration. We acknowledge that more can be done in this area, and we continue to leverage relationship with our vendors, clients, and other stakeholders. So I encourage you all to continue to be with us. We are just starting. This is the first day of the week of our Sustainability Week, and we'll be sharing some tidbits as we go along. Once again, thank you all, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Kunle.
Thank you.
The session has now come to an end. Thank you, attendees. Enjoy the rest of your day.